Mike from the World's joining us right now. Mike, how we doing tonight?
We have some technological issues over here too. What in the world? What's an odd day?
Well,
See, that'll make it a bit better. That should make it a bit better.
all right,
Okay.
Mike. Yeah, you know what? This again, I'll read your email. Thank you for sending us. It really set the stage, I think, for tonight. Well, you sent this email pretty well within the hour of the death of the Queen. You said, "Hello, Pastor and Heidi. While the world showcases the death of the Queen, there exists a greater significance. In fact, a great marker for the times we are in. There are earthly policies set by high-ranking men, policies that can never be implemented under the rule of a queen. While the passing of the Queen comes an old declaration, the declarations that can only be initiated by a king. These times are significant in many regards. I, for one, am thankful that you have and continue to coordinate an encouragement and education of the remnant." Mike, I appreciate that that email, the kind words as well, but there's some big statements in here when you're saying that something even greater than the death of the Queen is happening, and that is a great marker. Can you tell us what? Okay, you got to explain this to us.
Well, first of all, the Queen, she really did represent the last era of morals and ethos, right? And it's important for everybody to understand the coronation that takes place, that ceremony that takes place for the Queen and the King for the entire world, not just for England. We all know that things run by money. And without money, there's no power for a nation or a place, so on and so forth. So when the Queen passed, well, first of all, when she was installed, we'll say, there was a reading specifically for her that she was asked a question. And of course she answered, and it was one of the archbishops asked her, "Will you, to the utmost of your power, maintain the laws of God and the true profession of the gospel?" And although there are rumors and everybody is human, she really did represent morals in her time.
Yes, she did.
But for her to pass at the 70th year, first of all, is astounding. That's just astounding.
Yes.
Because it, and then I believe everybody saw that there was a rainbow or something like that. They were talking about that, came later. I found out about that a few hours ago. But
Wow.
They were talking about a rainbow. Yeah, it was over there. So you have all these coincidences. But of course, with me, these things are based in deep spiritual connotations.
Amen.
Very deep spiritual connotations. Number one, about the rainbow, I know a rainbow is majestic, right?
Yes.
And it could happen anywhere. But all of us should remember that God told Noah that the rainbow would appear at times when he deems the world as worthy of destruction. So we have a double rainbow. Something's wrong with it. Everybody normally says, "Oh, it's so beautiful. That's a good thing." No, it isn't. That's not a good thing. It's a good thing that God won't destroy the earth by water.
Right.
But it only appeared in times when the earth was, when God's wrath was about to pour out. And during the reign of certain kings in the Bible, it did not appear at all. The rainbow did not appear at all during certain reigns of the Bible, and it did appear during those evil reigns. Yeah. So yeah, that certainly is a sign or one of those things. But of course, the Queen passing, she was a queen. There are certain powers not installed to a queen. Although her coronation described most of her powers, common powers, well, above common for royalty. She did not have the power of a king. A king represents something far more significant than a queen ever can. Number one, a king is a male. So under the Queen's rule, if you notice in the world, things were a little more subtle, right? A little different. No, despite the changes in the world, there were no massive, great changes. that took place. But now there's a king momentarily. And with a king, the red dragon is back, right? A queen cannot be a dragon. That came from Roman culture and the Parthians. So then that even the crest of Wales, that red dragon represents a certain type of authority. And it's fully installed with a male. It cannot be that way with a female.
So the crest, the royal crest, has a dragon on it.
Well, there's a badge. The red dragon is part of one of the badges that's worn on the uniform of the king. So, and that has very deep meaning. That of course has a Roman heritage. It goes back to the Roman Empire. Is what it goes back to. And there are certain powers that are installed under each of those badges, by the way. And then we go back to the King James. King James. We go back to the first Georges that were in power. Some of the Charleses that were in power. They had a kingship. That was their coronation was, if you want to call it that, it's a little different than a queen. They have greater powers, more expanse, but most importantly, we've had the king's place was taken by the Vatican this entire time. Did you know that? So the king's position in the world was assumed by the Vatican because
no. So you're saying while the queen for 70 years was on the throne, the Vatican assumed the kingship.
That's right. They had to get authorities in policy, right, from him.
Now that she has died and King Charles III is on the throne, even though he hasn't had the coordination yet, he is officially the king. You're saying that the power of the church, because I know the Church of England, you know, the Church of England, of course, the Queen was considered the head of the Church of England, but you're saying that the head over her would have been the Pope. Does that shift back now to Buckingham?
That's right.
Wow.
Because during her coronation, right, they had, of course, let me see if I get this right. They had 9 chaplains. By the way, they were dressed in scarlet. 3 domestic chaplains followed them. Behind them were representatives of the free churches. There were 3 of the free, F-R-E-E, 3 of them. And that was the Presbyterian Church of England, Baptist Union, Methodist Conference, and the Free Church Federal Council. They followed behind them. And the representative of the Church of Scotland, of course, 3 moderators. They carry the cross. They always do everywhere they go. The cross of Westminster, and the old canon secretaries act representatives and keeper. Right. The canonized portion of the Bible is kept under guard with them, by the way. And of course, the Knights of St. Michael and St. George. Now, these guys were in the Queen's coronation because they were part of the delegation of power. But a king assumes all authority, right? So,
yes.
So he has a kingship over those who rule in these subsidiary divisions. So everything will change. It most certainly will change, big time, fast and furious. In fact, it is written by them that kings are justly called gods. This is them, not me. I'm not saying this is them. It says, for that they exercise a manner of resemblance of divine power upon the earth. Now, that's normally restored or kept for the Vatican. That's
wow.
part of his description. Not anymore. That's going to be for the king.
Wow.
It says they take on God's attributes in the earth.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then they make a statement. They say God hath power to create, destroy, make or unmake, in his pleasure, give life or send death, to judge all, to be judged not according to none, to raise low things and to make high things low, at his pleasure. And to God are both souls and body due. And then it says, and the like power has the king. So the king has those powers in the earth. A king, and that king will be known, he's known as the lieutenant of God in the earth. So everything changes, Pastor Paul. Everything changes. That means long-held traditions that were not very old traditions, very old ideologies will come back. They're already installed. They'll be read before the people. They're going to be presented. Things will change. Everything will change. I mean, everything will change.
Wow. So so basically, now I've been telling people earlier before you come on, of course, King George VI was involved with Winston Churchill in helping really preserve the United Kingdom while the Allied forces were coming in to rescue the world. And then in 1948, right after the war, he was involved in the establishment of the independence of the Philippines, the independence of India as nations, the establishment of Israel as a nation, and also the independence of Taiwan as an independent nation. And he signed off on all of those. I mean, King George VI. And so basically he was involved in what I would call the current world order.
Yes, yes.
And we haven't had a change in this current world order for 70 years.
That's right.
Now we're on the brink of something different. We've been talking about New World Order. We've been, you were in this webinar we did, Deep State, which I'm making available for folks tonight, but you were in this. General Boykin was in this. Doug Hagman, all these people. And so are you saying, Mike, that now that we have King Charles III, that this is a great marker, a milestone, a shift, a paradigm shift, and there are you said in the email, there are high-ranking men, policies that can never be implemented under the rule of a queen that are going to be implemented.
That's right.
Who are the high-ranking men? Are we talking about the puppet masters? Are we talking about the Illuminati? I mean, who are we talking about here?
No, these are the ones that impact everything we do, right? Kind of like the food crisis, some of the petrol problems, the oil issues. They govern all of that. If these things are happening, you just can't look at them and say they're happenstance. But that's just like in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. They turned over everything. In other words, there were certain policies of protection that were signed for the Queen's domain so that they could level things out. That was at a time of high morals. Those high morals are not there anymore.
Yeah,
the house, that royal house is almost broken apart.
Yeah.
You can see everything in shambles. And so, believe me when I tell you, there are going to be there's an institution of new policies nobody has ever seen before that restore the ancient rights of a king. A king is responsible for administration, not only of human beings, so to speak, but of their souls also.
Because he is the head of the Church of England.
That's right. And
here's the question, because you'll hear people say, well, England, the British, United Kingdom is now under its own parliament. They have a prime minister. These are just figureheads. But Mike, I'm going to ask you a question. Who really is in power here? Are you saying the king really is in power and that the real puppets are the guys, the politicians that come and go? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'll tell you, that place is like the central seat, right? It's the central seat of power in this world. In this world, you have public representatives and you have private leadership. Private leadership governs this entire earth. Okay?
Wow.
These people that people see, the representatives of those members, to a large degree, they will always come and go. But now you have a kingship reestablished, is what you have, and they will exercise rights through that kingship. Because if it's one thing they believe in, it's just like their recent, some of the recent news that's not really covered is this problem with witchcraft around the world, right?
Yeah.
And more and more people are joining forces with these witches, becoming witches and warlocks. Well, because of that, you have certain individuals who have come out of these underground clubs that are coming to speak out. Nobody cares. Nobody cares to listen to these guys or what they're doing on a daily basis. They don't care. And so what you do have is you have satanic rule implementing itself in the earth. Revelation, I know I sound like I'm beating a dead horse, but the beast looks just like the dragon.
Yeah.
The dragon can't do anything in the spiritual realm because of Christ and the blood. So what he did was he influences mankind to replicate everything he's doing. So he built a copy of himself in this plane of existence is what he's doing, and he will possess it, right? Of course, you know that, Pastor.
Yeah.
But he will possess that kingdom. Well, if this is not the beginning of it, if this is not the real beginning of the kingdom, not necessarily the person, but of that kingdom, because now you have authorities that will be reinstalled, that were not installed. These guys, even in the underground, these high-powered individuals will not do anything outside. They don't go outside of prophecy. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, they
They
don't.
will not go outside of prophecy. Because I'll tell you right now, they know prophecy better than most people on the on the planet. These guys have very ancient ties. They know all languages, all the Hebrew, all everything. They have all the artifacts. By the way, who do you think pays these archaeologists to go out there and dig up everything? It's these guys. So they get the first dibs on the finds. Yep. They take what is important, hide it from the populace. They keep it. They study. They work around prophecy because they know Lucifer's limitations.
Yes.
They already know his limitations, and they absolutely worship Lucifer. Right? We're not talking about the Church of Satan. That's not what we're talking about.
No.
We're talking about people who have action to what they do every single day. I mean, they manage and micromanage everything on the face of the earth.
Amen.
And, all these powers are about to come topside.
So now, they're about to come topside. And like you said, you're saying it may not, King Charles III may not be the guy, but he represents the position. Now it's getting re-implemented, is what I'm hearing you say.
That's right. That's right.
I'm saying he might not be the guy, and then again, he might be the guy. But let's just say we don't know that for sure. But let's ask ourselves this. You mentioned in this email, you said, while the world showcases the death of the queen, there exists a greater significance. I mean, that statement is greater than the death of the queen. There's something even bigger than that going on. That's huge. In fact, you said a great marker, or I say a milestone or a significant declaration for the times we live in. There are earthly policies set by high-ranking men, policies that can never be implemented under the rule of a queen. With the passing of the queen comes an old declaration. Do you mean by what is the old declaration? You
could liken those to Babylonian rites.
Okay.
They go all the way back to Babylon. All the way back. Kind of like we have the Ten Commandments, right?
Right.
Well, they have something else. It's very real. Everything is established based on these. You know what? It's going to be a time where many people begin to mature, Pastor Paul, because the kingship is soon to be exposed as to what it really is. We're not talking about we're not talking about the king and the queen on earth. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the entire system head is coming topside.
Wow.
Right? Things topside are becoming, they're about to take a new twist.
So when we say New World Order, or we say the Great Reset, or we say the rise of the Antichrist, or the era of
there are many names for it, Pastor Paul, but let's just say a final door is open. You know what? This entire time, they have been making open declarations, and it seems like the more a person knows about it, the more frustrating it can be. For example, there's certain doors that they open, but every time they do this, people change.
Yeah.
How can they cause people to be so polarized at this present time? Right.
Right.
When think of this, our weather is just off the scales right now.
Yes, it is.
People are in dire straits just with the weather. If everything else was going okay, they would be in dire straits just with the weather. But then we have political problems in every nation. We have breakaways. We have countries that were once small per capita. I'm not getting into the financial side, but these guys were tiny. But now they're mega nations like China, right? So what happens if China all of a sudden announces to the world that they've zeroed out financially? What would happen? Despite their boasts right now, what would happen if China said, we're kind of broke? We got to call all debt.
The world economy would crash.
Oh, that would be awful, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
And who controls, who actually controls when you're talking about the markets? There are three sides to the markets. Now, I did a lot of work with computer-based systems. I mean, on the backside of the computer-based system.
Really?
And I can tell you right now that
the software side of it, the back
some of the algorithms, right, they're not innocent like you would think. They're just not. They're not innocent. They have a specific outcome that they calculate towards on a continuous basis. So you have folks who have learned the system, right? But there's one problem. They don't know the system is partially set, is what they don't know. They don't know that system is partially set. In other words, our financial system is under the control of those. If they want it to crash, it will crash. If they don't want it to crash, it's not going to crash, right?
Right.
If we have food problems on a big scale, if they don't want that to happen, all of a sudden it's going to get restored. But if they do want it, nothing. How can anything be restored when these guys are the ones controlling the money and controlling where things go? So you have this controlling party who bided their time for a male to be appointed because the people are important. This is a part that is just no good. They need the cooperation of people. It cannot work without people. It cannot work without your audience, right? It cannot work without your audience. In other words, they need people to participate or they are powerless. They need people to agree with them. They need it, and people are doing it every single day. Pastor Paul, we live in a very immoral society. In the last 10 years, we have degraded so much. The word morals is out of the window.
Yeah.
Kids don't know what that is.
Yeah.
So these guys have been working overtime, and now we have about, just from certain policies, they were scrambling today. People were scrambling today.
Yeah.
Everything changes.
Well,
everything is going to change.
Let me ask you a question. Tomorrow, King Charles III is going to address the nation. I believe he's actually going to address the world. Every camera in the world is going to want to hear what he's got to say.
Of course.
Should we listen closely to the words he says? Is there anything there that might be a clue to what direction the world is going?
Some people have picked up that they always, for some reason, there's always some type of clue to where everything will go, right? Yeah. Remember we were talking about spam, and then all of a sudden the spam commercials started coming on television. Remember that?
How in the world you knew that? Of course, when you tell me that you've been involved with the algorithms or understanding the backside of the financial systems and things, so obviously you are privy at times to see some of the direction where they're going, and
arrogance.
Yeah, and that's really good. It's good for the body of Christ that we have people. You're like an Obadiah, you're like a Daniel, you're like a Joseph. God has put you in position, and He does this. I think not only you, but I think there's a lot of others out there that are in government agencies, not only in this government but every government. God puts people in the right position to help us to know where we're going, or help us understand what's taking place, so that we're not totally caught off guard. And so I appreciate that. I appreciate that gift. I appreciate that. I really do. I thank God for you and for what God's doing in your ministry. It's been a blessing to the body of Christ. I got a question for you. So we're going to go through 10 days of mourning here before the Queen is put to rest. And then there's a coronation. Is there, what will happen? I mean, will the leaders of the world converge on London? Is there some kind of certain spiritual rights or some kind of passage of rights, authorities that are going to be handed over or reestablished, I should say, with King Charles III?
That's a very good question. I'll tell you this. If these leaders who have been so busy doing what they're doing, if they ever pause, then spiritual authority is being exercised over them. If they because they haven't paused, right? So if this causes them to pause, for example, if all of a sudden Putin says, well, let's just slow down a bit, right? Or something like that, then something is exercised. What they're doing is yielding to a spiritual authority they absolutely know about.
Wow.
They know about this spiritual authority.
Yes.
Right? Things are not, of course you probably know, but things are not really as they seem to the average person. Everything in this world is largely governed by witches and warlocks. It is.
I know.
When you're looking at these rich folks and everything else, it's a shame that we look at, sometimes you expect them to be these mechanical pieces in a machine that will perform as per their title. Unfortunately, these guys believe in the dark side of spiritual things. I mean, intimately, they believe in it.
Yeah.
I'd say 90% of the people that are common on television, they're involved in this stuff all the time.
Right.
So if they yield to what's happening, if they yield to this 10-day reprieve, I'll say they will. If they yield to it, then you know that what they're really yielding to is the spiritual power.
Wow.
And if that ever happens, you know that a door is soon to open. You know what? There's something else too, Pastor Paul. And I never said it because I don't like that dream. I'm sure that people are asking about the coffin.
They
the
are.
queen is not the person in the coffin.
I knew, because I think you told us you saw a man, that it was a man. If I'm
yes.
Yeah.
But there was an American in that coffin, in America. So that happens in America. But here's the other part, right?
Yep.
There were 2 funerals before this person goes. There were 2, right? 2 large ones, actually. And so I'm wondering, is this one of the large ones? I mean, it really it kind of got to me too, because I was like, wait a minute, is this one of the large ones?
So you're saying there's 2 large funerals besides the one
that took place before the one in the coffin.
So
the one
you're
in
wondering,
the coffin
could this be one of the 2? Well, this is huge.
I'm wondering.
Let's face it.
Yeah, of course.
I
can't think of anything that could be bigger.
There's no president on the earth who could have died. It would be a bigger funeral or bigger deal than the Queen of England. I don't think so. I don't think there's no world leader out there any bigger than Queen Elizabeth II. So if there was 2 big funerals before the funeral that you saw, an American man in America in this coffin in the stone steps, this has got to be one of the 2 big funerals. It has to be.
I can't think of anything. It was a lot of people at the first one. A lot of people. The second one was. It looked like the second one's hard to describe. I took note of it, right? But it wasn't the one. I was shocked by the one in the coffin, though. That one shocked everybody.
Yeah.
But there were 2 before that, quite large, also quite large. So,
I mean, we just had the death of Gorbachev. I don't think that one would have been it. Although that was,
no, because he's not one of those.
No.
These were deaths that people actually responded to. In fact, as per that dream, right?
Yeah.
It started to change in people. Is what it did. Each one started to change in people, and it just hit the boiling point. At the last one,
so
was one of the coffins.
When you say if this 10 days of mourning, if you see and what I'm hearing you say, if there's a cooling off period, if Putin kind of backs off and doesn't go real aggressive for the next 10 days, if China kind of slows down the rhetoric with Taiwan, if Iran even kind of slows down a little bit, you're saying that if you see these kinds of things happen, you're watching other spiritual kingdoms being subdued under this change of authority. Is that right?
And that means that's where that central point of power actually is.
I'm going to be watching like a hawk. I am literally going to be glued to the geopolitical issues in the next 10 days, because I'm seriously, everything that moves now could be a significant clue to where this order of the world is going. And thing is, you can tie things to prophecy. I was just looking this afternoon before we come on here today in Proverbs 29 when it said, when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked bear rule, the people mourn. But if you go to verse 4, it says, the king by judgment establishes the land. This is not just this is the Bible telling you that it's a biblical principle that kings have super authority spiritually than men understand.
That's right.
And God gives that authority, even whether it's a good king or bad king. Am I right, Mike?
That's right. That's right. Because God appoints kings.
Yeah, he does.
So regardless of what they are, God appoints. Now, when one rises, I noticed something too, Pastor Paul. when a king rises through the death of another, right?
Yeah.
There's a, what do they, I can't remember what they called it. It's a difference between a king that's appointed and a king that's appointed through proxy. In other words, by the fall of somebody before him, right? There's something that goes with that person. That person is not by himself, although he's still appointed, he's still there.
Yeah.
But that something goes with that king. But one great piece of advice is when something like this happens, if the rest of the world observes it and they slow down, then you know where that principal authority is in the earth. And that is absolutely trackable. I mean, it's like clockwork. You can absolutely see where spiritual authorities actually are, because the rest will yield to it.
Do you think the political rhetoric in America is going to yield for 10 days? You see a cooling down here between the infighting between the Republicans, Democrats. I mean, it's just nasty. Do you see that?
Well, if I tell you what, if somehow whatever principality is here, if it is subdued by what's happening there, right?
Yeah.
Well, then that could potentially be it.
So this is another thing to watch. It's another thing to watch.
Yeah. Because if not, we have a problem, right? We have a big problem. Personally, I know things are changing.
Right.
Things are changing big time. You can't, people aren't going to discuss all of it, but things are changing. And a dragon is it looks like they're preparing for the dragon's activities, not necessarily that king, but certainly a dragon's activities.
Well, if we talk about the dragon now, you've brought the dragon up about 4 times tonight, so we better go over and look at Revelation, because it does say that this dragon in Revelation 16, there's 3 unclean spirits that come out of the mouth of the dragon, the mouth of the beast, and the mouth of the false prophet. And are you saying that there may be an establishment of this dragon spirit, or am I sensing that? Will there be symbols?
It's like things are converging. Things are starting to converge.
Okay.
Fast, very fast. That really means that things are going to change fast, possibly without warning. They will change.
Does this put the clock a little closer to midnight in the coming?
Yes, it does. It's actually, past Paul, this actually begins a clock that's just never ticked, right? It's never ticked.
Wow.
The world has never been in this, it has never been in this condition. Not this condition. We're too advanced, right? We sit at the precipice of certain types of technology where we could destroy one another, right?
Yep.
Countries are being called out. In other words, bluffs are being called, right? Most leaders are frustrated. All the world leaders are frustrated.
Yeah.
And if you notice something about those, Pastor Paul, who are I forgot, was it Revelation? Anyway, it says there's some people sitting behind the leadership who agreed to give their power to the beast 1 hour.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
So nobody ever sees these people.
No.
They give their power to the beast 1 hour.
Yes.
Right. And but these people are in the woodworks, is what it means. And right now you have a lot of folk, you have these leaders in the world that it seems like they don't even qualify to be leaders. To be honest with you, it seems like they don't qualify.
Well, I agree.
It's almost like watching a cartoon or well-scripted, I don't know, soap opera, I guess you could say. It's just full of drama.
Do you think that the new Prime Minister of England, what are the odds that she gets in power 2 days before the death of the Queen, and she goes and sees the Queen? Is there anything significant there? Was there something weird there? I mean,
the timing is impeccable. You know what? I think it is. When things are seen like this, right? Yeah. I'll say this. Nobody has to believe it. I'll say this from experience, because normally nothing catches me off guard. I'm not bragging. It just does not, because I consider many things. But when you start to see all these little coincidences, right? Normally they point to something, right? If we're careful to observe, not add anything to it, not take anything away, just observe, they normally tell a very significant thing. Now we have eruptions that are about to begin, right? Volcanic eruptions that are about to begin. We have problems in the sun. We have another type of shifting in the weather. Winter is coming. The Queen is gone, right?
Yeah.
America has, let's go ahead and face it, we have some, America's in one of those wild card modes, right?
Yeah.
It's very, the future of America, although it's solid in some degrees, it's very, you don't know which way it's going to go the next day.
In a political,
You just don't.
In a political environment, it's very shaky and dangerous. And did you notice
That's right.
there's a spectacular blood moon tonight? I mean, not blood moon, excuse me, full moon. A spectacular full moon. Brock and I were looking at it just before we went on the air, and he said, Dad, don't you feel the eeriness of this whole thing? I mean, look at the sky. I mean, does God know something's happening right now?
And also the double rainbow they were talking about.
Yeah, the double rainbow.
I know a lot. Again, I know people thought that was good, but a rainbow's appearance, that really denotes that the world should be destroyed at the very moment.
So are you saying, Mike, are you anticipating a major eruption, a volcanic eruption, or an earthquake, some kind of really serious birthing pain, if you will, during this process, maybe even during these 10 days?
I think, you know what I believe? That's already begun. I was about to say we have 4 hurricanes that just seemingly, it's almost like they stopped. It's almost like they're hesitant, right?
Yep.
The weather patterns are just messing up the meteorologists because they're saying, wait a minute, we have the water flows are very consistent here. So why are they stalled? We had a big one in the North Atlantic that broke down and reformed. It just it's like governing traffic, right? But it's driving currents to cause these other storms to kind of stay put. We have stalled weather patterns. We had a front that just came through America that covered the entirety of America. All of America was covered by this front.
Wow.
They didn't say a word about that.
No.
They didn't say a word about that. And it's it's drifting off, but we have more things forming because we have extreme hot weather in California. Everybody knows which way the jet stream flows. The water currents are not helping because in the Gulf, we could potentially have one of those super issues popping up. I hope that's not the case. I really do hope that's not the case, but the waters are heating up too fast because of California's temperatures. And a lot of this is coming from a tilt no one is discussing. It's only visible by lasers, right? I mean, things are just changing. They even proved through the James Webb telescope, they said the Big Bang Theory was incorrect, right? So scientists are not happy today because the Big Bang Theory is not correct. That James Webb telescope can see very deep into space, right? So when you start looking at some of your red scans of these galaxies, if something were to start from nothing, explode out to everything, the light would refract differently. The sizes would be different. That's not the case. They have found some extremely old systems out there that are extremely big. They're not supposed to be big at the explosion point. They've seen vice versa close to us. So they're throwing that out of the window. That doesn't work. So they're totally baffled. They're like, wait a minute, there was no Big Bang. And they're all messed up because this undoes a lot of their foundation, right? I mean, it just messes everything up for them. Not for us, of course, but for them it does. In fact, they've noticed quite a few things they cannot explain. One of the things they have seen, they said it would take at least 50 years to work their nerve up to print it in the first place. So they're witnessing things. They're not going to share it because they can't prove their own personal theories correct with it. I'm sure they're going to leak out on the web or something like that. So there are a few things upsetting some of the scientists, politicians, right? Yeah. Things they're doing, they're not working. Things that they're trying to implement, they're not working. They're just not working. The COVID-19 is about to go back into the news in 2.5 weeks. So, we're just, we sit it's almost like a red light is up, right? And we don't know who's running that traffic light. And it's about to go green. All of us know it, but we don't know who's running that traffic light. There are so many things being held back right now. And with this recent happening, Pastor Paul, I think they're going to put themselves in an overdrive and try to push through quite a few things.
Wow. This is, folks, we got Mike around the world with us tonight. Obviously, this is amazing evening of information, a wealth of information about the passing of Queen Elizabeth II, the fact that it isn't just some little show of monarchy. The monarchy is not just a little show, and that really the politicians at Parliament are running the show. No, this is a kingdom that's been around over 1,000 years. Yeah, that's not light. You can't just say that lightly. Outside of, I would say, the popes of Rome, you got the Pope of Rome and you got the King of England. It don't get much higher than that on this earth. And we have something, am I right, Mike?
Yeah, and they let no one mess or change ancient rites. So everybody knows when you're dealing with a king, they let no one alter, amend, change the ancient rites that are about to be bestowed. So no one can change those things. And they are, in their terms, these are God rights of men in the earth, of a man in the earth, which is king. This is what they believe. This is their saying.
This is their saying.
Oh, yeah.
King Charles III, of course, sitting on the throne. His coronation is going to take place. He's already the king. We're going to go through, like you said, Mike, there's going to be a lot of celebration. I shouldn't say celebration. There's going to be a lot of showcasing of the death of the queen. But something greater significance is going on in the background. Something much larger, a great, might call it a great marker of old declarations. They're going to be re-established. I think we're going to see this beginning of this new world order. And what I mean by that, it's a different order than what we've been living in. It is definitely going to be a different order. And it could be, for some areas, it could be a whole lot worse than what it's been. Maybe others it might see a little better, but it looks to me like we're moving into the era of the antichrist. And Mike, you said a new clock started ticking. I don't know if you said new clock, but
clock.
It's almost
brand
like,
new clock is ticking
brand new
for the
clock
first
just
time.
started ticking. It's almost like we moved into, I'm not saying we're moving into the 7-year tribulation period, but something different just happened. Is that right?
Yeah, it is. Hopefully people aren't frightened about this or more observant than anything. Yeah. I want to remind everybody that even 7 years of tribulation, right, is something that those folks who have not gone through anything on earth, right, that's highly reserved for them. We're going to see it. We're going to observe a lot, right? But the Lord has already said he's going to keep us. In fact, he said not one hair on your head is going to perish.
Right.
That's what he said. And so he's given us rule over all the spirits in the earth and those spiritual people.
I agree with you, Mike. I don't feel any fear about this at all. I don't feel any dread or fear about this at all. I am going to observe it and watch closely. I think there's going to be some Bible prophecy clues are going to play out right in front of us. And if you're observant, you'll see it. You'll begin to see the change, the winds of change, which is leading us to the soon coming of Jesus Christ, but also the rise of the Antichrist. I think that you're going to see the winds of change. So we need to be observant, prayed up, ready, understand what the time we're in. Is that kind of what you're feeling?
It is. It is. And you know what I'm glad about, Pastor, is that even the Antichrist, he can't rise by himself. He can't even show his face by himself. God has to appoint him time. He has to give him a mouth speaking great swelling words and all these things. So he can't even rise by himself. But we do sit at a very different time. And these things aren't random. I believe these things are ordained. I do believe they are ordained. No matter how bad they look, I think they're ordained. Because every time they cut up in the world and things get worse in the world, it motivates a true believer closer to the Messiah, to Christ, to Jesus of Nazareth. It just makes our relationship that much better. Because sometimes we do, if given too much freedom, we do drift. We do. And when a problem comes, what do? We say, Lord, I need you. We go right back to him. So guess what? If I were in control of everybody and I said, hey, my kids only come close to me when there's a problem. If I was a good dad and loved my children, they'd have a problem once every 2 days. Right? So I'd always be close to them. But, that keeps us. That's the Lord keeping us. Because if we ever drift too far away, believe me, there are wolves out there nobody has ever seen and nobody ever wants to encounter. And given all these time shifts and things that we're having in the earth, there's some brand new phenomena in the earth that have nothing to do with UFOs and the creepy things that the Pentagon is chasing after. But people are in trouble these days. They're really in trouble. There's some phenomena people are starting to deal with.
Mike, are we going to see some world leaders show up for this funeral of the Queen that we never thought would.
Oh yeah,
Like,
yeah. You're going to see quite the audience.
are we going to see
You're gonna see-
kings from the Middle East?
You'll see quite the audience. You know what? All that right now, all that's in the air because I'm going to be observant too to see who actually who actually shows up and who's because all of them have the invitation. It's a global invitation.
Wow.
So
I mean,
they have the
Putin-
invitation.
I mean,
If
Vladimir
they
Putin-
show up, well, then we know. Then we're going to see we're going to know what we're dealing with here.
And if
Or
you
at least
don't
where it
show,
is.
you're really going to look like you're on the outside looking in. And if you do show, then you're taking the knee to the new king.
Yep.
This is a huge deal here. This is a huge deal. And I mean, I think that you might see the king, the king of Saudi Arabia, if he don't come, he probably will send the Saudi crown prince. You might see King Jordan, the king of Jordan, King Abdullah. He may show.
It might be quite the spectacle.
We might see Erdogan show up out of Turkey. I mean, we just really, this is going, if Putin shows up, I'll just freak out. I mean, I just really will. I know Macron's going to be somewhere in the front row, okay, but some of these guys are salivating to get as close to the camera as they can.
Yeah,
Am I right?
Yeah, they are. Well, I don't see how. I don't know if Putin will be able
I don't either.
to show up. He's somewhat of a. They're starting to see his true
They could
colors
arrest.
now.
Could they
you know?
arrest him if he did show up?
Oh yeah, because he has. Those are international war crimes.
What about
He's been
President
convicted
Xi?
of, really.
What about President Xi from
He
China?
could show up. He
Yeah,
could
he
show
might
up.
show up.
He could show up.
Yeah.
He could actually. He's not going to war with anybody yet. You know,
Right.
threats are one thing, but to
Right.
follow through with armies, that's a different story. But Putin would have a difficult time showing up
Yeah.
because they would probably seize all of his. They probably take the plane
Yeah,
he flew
he's
in
not
on.
coming.
You know,
No.
sanctions would take effect. That wouldn't be good. But
You might even see the Ukrainian president Zelensky show up
if he can make it, that's very.
if he can get out of there
That's very
alive and
possible.
back. Right.
If it doesn't look bad optically for him to leave his country to go somewhere else in the middle of war, that would be the only thing that
Yeah.
could potentially hold him back.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what, Pastor, after this observation, after this ceremony is done, we're going to see exactly how things are going to change. But I'll tell you this, they will change fast. So we could be looking at a 10-day down period with things, right?
Yep.
Save maybe a couple of countries. But because they're sending fighters to help Russia now, believe it or not.
Who
a lot
is?
of countries are. Well, you have North Korea, you
Yeah.
have China,
Yeah.
you have
Iran.
the usuals, Iran.
Yeah.
Iran is sending another batch over there, but Iran also has, they probably did not print it yet. Well, they'll probably have some articles out of some new technology they have discovered that Iran has and is utilizing that has been responsible for taking down our drones. There's no way these guys should be able to take down
Yeah, how did they
NATO
take down our
drones
drone?
and
How
our
did
drones.
Iran take down our drone?
Well, that's a good question because they took down one of the first ones and they landed that drone
Yeah.
at their airport. So, those guys are savvy when it comes to computers. And that's really what changes the front of war, Pastor Paul, is that we're dealing with a war that's primarily based on logic or computers. And believe it or not, America is not the most savvy with computers. You have China. China would be number one. They can replicate, mimic, innovate, and augment anything. Iran would be number two. They're the ones that had all the international scientists over there helping them. While nobody knew about it, they were being helped to develop several things. And then you had the Russians. Believe it or not, Russians are extremely savvy with computers. That's why I don't believe it's hard for me to accept certain news stories about Russia because Russia is naturally clandestine. They can make another nation believe that they're impoverished. They can make another nation believe, and they can make the whole world believe anything and then pop out and do something else, which is, it's in their playbook. That's the way they do things. So they will take that. But I don't trust when somebody's overtaken Russia, that's a big question mark because these guys are on a computer level as far as knowledge, far beyond the rest of the world. In fact, they helped China. They're the ones that helped Iran. They helped us, right?
Yeah.
We wouldn't even go to space without them.
Yeah, they hauled
We
us.
wouldn't.
For 8 years, we had to hitchhike with them to the space station.
Yeah, well, we also borrowed some of the architecture for some of the Navy's real-time computing systems. Is basically from those same scientists who were in Russia. So yeah, those guys they are something else. They have a lot of tricks up their sleeves. So I wouldn't believe the media concerning them. That's something everybody will have to
we got to
see.
get your thought just for a second here, just to sidestep this main issue for just a moment. We'll come back to it, but okay. So what do you think about this power outages at the beginning? These rolling blackouts, adjusting of people's thermostats, the control, actually the government's ability to reach in and turn your thermostat up and lock it where you can't turn it back down, or vice versa, whether it's cold or hot. It's already demonstrated in Denver, Colorado this week. Are we getting, isn't this overreaching for sure? Are we going into a whole new world of energy management?
Well, let's look at the real problem, right?
Okay.
Let's look at the real problem, because that's a bit intrusive, wouldn't you say?
Well,
it's a bit intrusive.
it is, yes.
Think of it this way, though. About 3 years ago, was it 3 or 4 years ago, they kept having a leak at a nuclear facility in California. They kept having problems with 2 of the backup generators in Colorado.
Yeah.
They kept having transport issues with some of the nuclear generated power on the East Coast in certain parts. These same places are the ones with the energy problems. So is it really energy, or is somebody sidestepping an issue with some of the nuclear facilities? Personally, because they didn't retrofit some of these places. So I would say they're still having issues with some of their nuclear facilities. Right.
Wow.
And that is a soft point for the U.S. right now. We still have terrorism going on.
Right.
We have larger threats. We have drones that are in our airspace, drones hovering over electric poles and things, that people trying to take down the grid. Right. So how hard would it be to get the codes to a nuclear facility and send a shutdown command to the relays?
That is dangerous.
And the generators are not turning on to back it up. We have failing generators across the line. And so, but where's the money allocated to do that? Plus, you have to keep a secret. If you can't publicize that. You can't say, we're going to retrofit, reactor 12 of this place. You can't do that. Because if the populace knows, terrorists know, and they will go in there and mess everything up. So, that's not a good position. But I would, people have to use discernment and look at the situation in the scope of years, and to see what could really be happening here. Because I'll tell you, in certain places, it's a very serious problem. You don't want a nuclear facility in overload and cause heat, right? Because these things generate heat. And if you have pump problems, we already have water dropping at certain levels, right? Yeah. Well, that same water feeds the cooling system for the nuclear facilities. Think about it. And so all of a sudden, when the water starts dropping, people get their power clipped, right? So you kind of have to put all this together to get an absolute picture of what's happening. We could have severe problems in certain areas no one has ever considered.
Wow.
Better, worse, worse than we think.
So energy management, water management, food distribution. This is a medical distribution. This is a real deal, right? This is this is going to become the new norm here in America and around the world.
It'll get worse because the weather, as far as people have seen the weather this year, think of next year, right? We have seen 58 degrees in temperatures. 158, I believe, temperature got up to. So think about this. The year prior, we only saw 132. This year, we see 158.
Wow.
What's it going to be next year, right?
175.
The sun's activity is increasing even more. It's increasing.
Okay,
the chemistry on the sun is changing.
Okay, and is that because of the binary system? That's what's shaking this thing up.
Well, it has to be external, because even Jupiter is starting to, its properties are changing, right? Yeah. We still have large inbound energy pulses that are smacking us so numerously that, why keep count anymore? There's too many things are coming in now. Now we live in a time, Pastor Paul, we have entered into the door, we're crossed the threshold where people will actually have a conversation. I don't know if I'm going to the game or not, because I don't know if one of those meteorites is going to burn up, the field like it did to, in that country. Right. We're going to have that type of conversation. Wasn't it last night that something hit in the oceans? Or did they tell anybody?
No, I didn't
you
tell
have
anybody.
things like that happening,
If
right?
I
I believe a week prior to that, something else hit the oceans. Week prior to that, something else hit the ocean.
I
So
didn't hear nothing.
you have all these inbounds breaking our atmosphere, right? And if they come in through the southern hemisphere, forget it. They're just not going to talk about it, as you saw it. But we have more inbounds now, greater and greater intensity of these things. The amount of them is coming in, is happening. It's only a matter of time before they start hitting landbound. We have magnetic pools in parts in Mexico, Russia, which is Siberia, places like that, Alaska. There's an anomaly changeover. It used to be further north, but there's an anomaly now in Alaska which will draw any debris to itself. And that's why these objects normally go into certain parts of the ocean, certain parts of land masses, not really everywhere else. But we have a different type pool on the Earth now. So, we're going to hit some major areas now, and this will increase until we get to the point where we have actual forecast meteor storms.
It's going to start being part of your weather report, is what I'm hearing you say. You're going to look on your phone. You're not just going to look at the temperature and is it going to rain, but you're going to be looking at inbound meteor report.
That's right.
And this is sooner rather than later, folks. We're in a different world now. We've moved into this apocalyptic world, really. And a lot of things happening. This has been fascinating, Mike. I mean, we really, and I'm glad you explained about the coffin, because I had so many emails and phone calls coming in. I'm like, can you wait till tonight? Because I know that you had already said that the person you saw in the coffin was a male, and it was an American.
Right here in America.
Yeah,
yep.
So
right here in America.
But this could be one of those two big funerals that was prior to the situation that was going to happen in your dream. Certainly, we are witnessing extraordinary time, and this next 10 days or so is going to be extraordinary. And then the coronation of the new king, King Charles, will be another huge spectacle, and a lot of bending of the knee and kissing of the ring. You're going to start finding out how strong and how many empires are going to succumb or relinquish their authority publicly. You see this coming, don't you?
Yeah, you know what'll be sad is if they get minimal support, we know then we're going to break out some type of conflict.
Yep.
They're past the point of talking, and right before every single conflict, they go through a moment of diplomacy. Then they go through a moment of where they just cut ties. They start cutting ties. And then, of course, after that, it's all action and secrecy. So we're at the moment now where we have diplomacy is not working. It's just not working. So they've cut ties. Now the contemplation preparation period has hit. Right after that, normally they have engagements. And Russia has, they've lit their match early.
Yeah, they did.
But China is not far behind.
No.
China, Pastor Paul, to be honest with you, I don't see how China's economy is going to hold up. I know it sounds strange. I just don't see how that's going to hold up. I don't see it. And they're going to have to make a move quick.
I mean, look, they're getting ready to put President Xi in for life, almost. A third term. They're almost making him a king in themselves. If his economy, though, crashes, they'll throw him in the street. It no matter what.
It'll be big rebellion.
Yeah.
That's all they need is a failure in that leadership, and the whole of China will begin to rebel. It'll be drastic.
Because the people are tired of all the restrictions. They're tired of being beat down and locked in their homes and all the different things and they're already tired of their faith being under persecution. Their families.
That's a lot of them too.
Yeah.
A lot of them too.
So, Mike, awesome tonight. What are we going to talk about next week? Better hang on to my hat, huh?
I have no idea. I am looking for a volcano, though.
Okay.
Hopefully we have one. If we don't have an eruption here soon, right? The pressure is up there again. It's built up very high. So if we don't have an eruption, it's going to cause major problems. That will cause, certain types of cracks in the crust. And
so there
are a lot of people watching that.
We need some release of pressure.
We do.
Yeah.
We do. And by the way, Pastor Paul, when a volcano erupts in the first minute, it lets out more carbon than we do. And I believe it's the count is 38 years. Yeah, just to let you guys know that.
Appreciate that. Maybe we should be more concerned about that than we are cows and your light bulb.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Some gas usage.
Mike from the world, Mike, appreciate it. This is awesome. Awesome, great.
It's always an honor, Pastor Paul.
The honor is all mine, believe me, and our people. God bless you.
God bless you.
All right.